don't know. I know it's coming a long way. It's really retrained and stuff, but like when I first started using it, like just kind of like playing around, typing stuff in, just like this just doesn't seem right, or this seems super outdated. So I don't know. I don't know how often do you use chat. Not how often do you use AI? I won't say Chat GPT, but how often
Oh,
do you use
AI.
AI? Yeah.
Daily, right? And I think like people, again, they all often think about AI just being Chat GPT is beyond that, right? Like AI
Hmm.
is built into like our Calendly. Many of us are using Calendly. Many of our HRIS systems and recruiting platforms have AI embedded in them and such now. But we do use Chat GPT quite a bit. We use Tango.us to do our single point lessons. That's how I'm able to like scale and bring on
Okay.
additional people because it allows me to help them pretty much with paint by numbers type of like documents, which I think would be, I don't know if you use some of those resources, but with regards to what you do, like it cuts down time tremendously because it literally takes screen captures as I'm maneuvering through tasks. So some of
Hmm.
my clients use different platforms, like some use AI, like one is on Paycor. Like I've had, like there's some like more restaurant kind of industries they use. It's called Career Plug is another
Yeah.
like recruiting platform. And so, um, because like I oftentimes will have like some of my contractors help me with some of the tasks or clean up in those systems. It prevents me from having to jump on a call and have a meeting. Like I do one of those screen capture documents, and
Hmm.
when they use it live, like it zooms in, like it shows click here, now type in this, and so it literally is paint by numbers. But no, we use it quite a bit. I love it.
I do too, and I would say Tango is. I love Tango for that. So I'm like, okay, thank God, because like a part of it, when some of the project I have to do is like capturing the screenshots, and like beforehand, like before this stuff like came out, like I had to like physically stop the video, take a screenshot, make sure it matched what we were about to type, and I had to train like some of my contractors as well to do the same thing. So like when this stuff started coming out, I was just like, thank you, Jesus! Like this makes it so much faster. Like I would spend like spend so much time just doing like the basic stuff. But yeah, we use it a lot. So this actually raises my next thing I want to get into. So we know AI is awesome, like it's amazing. We all use it a lot. But what I've been seeing is that people have been replacing other, I guess, job titles and stuff with it. So like instead of hiring a person to do it, they just have AI. So that is their what I've been seeing, like that is their coach, that's their virtual assistant, things like that. So I would love to dive into that. And please do, you guys listening, feel free to come on up and join the discussion because I would love to hear y'all thoughts too. How do you feel about that? For me, I get it. Like, especially when you're starting out in business stuff, like I feel like it's really helpful for that kind of stuff. But like when it comes to like the deep inner work, especially the work that we do, I feel like yeah, it can speed some stuff up, but it's definitely not a replacement. And I try to speak out against that whenever they, depending on what stage they're in.
Yeah, no, I think there's balance. Like it cuts down time, which cuts down costs, right? So if you're a business
Right.
owner, that's great. And so for larger corporations, they've been slow to embrace it, but I think that they will. And so with people that are worried in the workforce, my counsel to them is that you need to become the expert in how to use the AI technology. Like we went through this transition maybe 40 years ago, right? 40, 50 years ago with the automotive industry, right? Because there became a point in time where they started to introduce machines and everyone was worried, oh my God, it's replacing jobs. But then out of that birthed the skilled trades movement, right? Because you
Right.
actually needed people that could manage and fix those machines when they break down. So that created a whole different career path. And so we're starting to see some of that kicking off now. There actually are like some, especially with some of the tech companies, like major, organizations that they actually have jobs where if you
Hmm.
start reading some of the job descriptions now, they do have an element of you being knowledgeable of the use of AI. Because, again, for those that have caught on, they realize it helps them with their bottom line so that they can reduce cost and reduce the number of people that they need. So it would behoove you, if you have not gotten into the movement, which, again, like you're behind, right, at this
Right.
point, but you need to really challenge yourself to become a prompt master, and and touch out, and kind of test out some of these new technologies, because I'm telling you, it takes, like, even these videos, like, that's an app that does that, right? So imagine, like, with me being able to have one of my contractors do that. Like, some of the content I've been able to create lately, it's merely just been from recordings that I've done like 1, 2 years ago for my YouTube channel. And there's actually an app that cuts all that stuff down into like little clicks, right? Because it has all the algorithms for the different social media platforms. Like, there's, certain algorithm for like TikTok versus Instagram versus Facebook and LinkedIn here. And you can only, at most, you probably 90 seconds is what
Hmm.
what you want, like a minute and a half video. And so it analyzes that video and takes out like the key things that are going to be attention grabbers. So there's so much and so many uses. And so I think, again, yes, there's negatives. Yes, you need to double check and fact
Yeah.
check, from especially the chat GPT. Because, again, like, I don't hear people talk about this a lot. Like, it's a language learning model. It's an LLM is really what it is. It's a
Hmm.
language learning model. So they were using us as guinea pigs when they first launched this technology. So that's the other thing to keep in mind, like, especially if you have the free version. But early on, like, that's why it was free, and they were, promoting
Yeah.
it and getting
Testing.
people to use it, because they were using the data to tweak it to help perfect it, right? And so it is steady, it's not perfect, it's growing. So whatever you use it for, you do need to make sure that you have some relevant knowledge and expertise in that field or area so that you can review it and fact check it and update it for accuracy.
And I definitely agree. And I feel like that goes with like anything that we do. I do want to bring up too, since we're on that, the ethical side of it, because again, a lot of people are using it as like a replacement for like another team member or whatever. But I've also been hearing about, I haven't seen it personally, but like hearing how people are using it, I guess, to put in like sensitive information. So like training it for their clients and stuff, putting that sensitive information in and using it for whatever. But it's just kind of like, how do we draw a line on that? Or like, how do we, I want to think like how I want to say that. I guess it's more like how can we as leaders like establish like policy and stuff that goes along with AI and like make sure we're enforcing that.
Well, establish policies, but also pay attention. The government has been releasing language around that. Like, that'll be an upcoming look. Here's a little look, an exclusive. Like, I'll be doing. I'm sure I probably will do a YouTube on it, but also like some TikToks or something.
Yeah.
Because, again, like with my one of my memberships, like, we get into like a lot of the law changes and stuff. And so the government actually has started to provide guidance, especially around the use of AI technology in the hiring process. So, like I mentioned, these recruiting platforms often have AI technology embedded in them. So, like with the recruiting, and then there's other certain jobs, they've now released some language that you can use the technology, but it has to have a human, like, managing it. So
Mm-hmm.
that provides a little bit of a checks and balances and having a human component to it. Because, again, while how great it is and it helps cut down, time and cost, like in the recruiting, you know, in the recruiting field as it was being used, there were issues where it was eliminating like diverse groups of individuals. And then we have to take it a step further. I always go here because this is the whole cultural competence,
Yeah.
and sociology. Um, background that I have. Like when you look at, and I bring this up often to people. 3 or 4 years ago, I remember a selfie floating around the internet. I think it was first like TikTok, and then it was widely shared. Again, because of my lens, I viewed it differently, right? But it was like an
Hmm.
office selfie of like the employees at ChatGPT, right? I don't think
Yeah.
I saw a black face in the crowd. It was white and Indian people and mostly
Mm.
male. And that's why, like, when, I hear women complain, or I'm in groups where we're playing around and we're using like ChatGPT to create images, or like one lady, and she was, like older, and she was putting her picture in and asking it to make like a business profile picture, and it kept making like these over sexualized photos of her, right?
Yeah.
But again, you have to think who's behind the system, who's behind the machine, and their vantage point, right? So
Very
she was
true.
like, I don't want it to make a sexy photo. She was getting
I think
so
I know what you're
frustrated.
talking about now, and I triggered that.
Yeah, and we kept trying to like change the prompt, the wording, the way we worded the prompt to see if it would change differently. But I think that that's something to keep in mind too, like as you're using some of these different systems, if, and again, here is a plug for HR, if the folks that are creating these systems are not diverse, then they miss. There's just certain things that aren't in their vantage point, right? Or considerations that they don't even consider. And so, from a policing essentially of the use of AI, we are starting to see, because it has created some issues, some major issues, because if, again, the technology is automatically kicking out certain demographics of folks from like a recruiting process, those are grounds for litigation, right? And
Hmm.
so now, like I said, the government is starting to step in, and again, they're like they're soft shoeing it, right? But they're starting to slowly like release some language and policies around like using this technology.
Good. You definitely should do that YouTube video. But even for me, that would find that super helpful, especially with the laws and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it wasn't on my radar. Like after some of this stuff, I'm telling you, that's why, again, like I'm being very, very intentional now. Like with these groups, I've cut a lot of these groups and stuff that I was attending. But like the
Yeah.
ones, like this particular one, yeah, like, yeah, it keeps me updated on all these. Like this year, there's been so many different laws and things that they keep releasing.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so I will make a note. That's on my radar to do in the next week or so.
Okay. I'm like making a little note for myself and like see what I could probably come up with for my side. Like being careful,
Yeah.
but I know I kind of want to tie in like our conversation from last week because we talked about like how like characteristics of leadership, or maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself. But I would love to also talk about AI and also like how it plays into like the emotional intelligence of like leaders. We talked about last week how saying like a lot of people in leadership, let me not say a lot, a good number of people in leadership are not the best fit or should not be leaders, should be not be leading a team. So like when you implement like AI and all this other stuff, like I don't know. I guess how can we? I'll just say we as a whole, like even people that we don't consider to be good leaders, but how can we probably make things more like communicate well, like how to build relationships and everything, especially as things increase. People are using AI to kind of like backtrack and not want to work with people or things like that. So it's more so. This is more so me kind of like thinking out loud, like how
Oh,
can we?
you're on the right track, right? And I think we got to
Yeah.
talk about this more, because there's people that already, like I said, there's some folks that are far, far behind, and they're going to feel disenchanted and like they've been done wrong. But, they aren't researching, they aren't open, they've been closed off versus embracing the technology and looking at the uses versus diving in to focus on the negatives, right? So there's people that I know that actually are using it for that exact reason. Kind of as an emotional support to kind of talk through issues or scenarios that they may be having, to get feedback on how to handle them, to get feedback on how to present differently in meetings and things like that. There even is like they're starting to build specialized like apps that
Hmm.
focus specifically on that, that area, kind of as your own coach, right? That you go to and
Yeah.
you tell it this scenario's happening, and then it kind of tells you how you should handle it. That's one of the ways that I use it, right? When I'm coaching, individuals, because I create tailored like coaching scenarios and role
Hmm.
playing, um, you know, scenarios. And so I will go, like, I'll use ChatGPT. And again, it's a great starting point. And I say, I may tell it, hey, I have this scenario. This director has had several complaints on XYZ, whatever. This is the type of industry, the type of environment they're working in, the type of employees that they're working with. Um, Please create some coaching scenarios, and then I might add some additional criteria. But I've even gone as far where I've realized like the individuals I'm working with just don't get it. They just lack self-awareness.
Hmm.
Like I have had it even give pointers on like when they're sitting down and maybe coaching their employee
Yeah.
how they should present physically. Like, so I get that granular
Mm.
in detail around like the position of where they sit versus whether they're sitting right across from them or if they're sitting side by side with the individual. Like being cognizant of their hand movement while they're, having this conversation. And again, like where in years past, like I've had to create those things. And those things would take me like a couple weeks lead time, and then I create a presentation, and then usually I'd roll out, like have a few different training sessions globally, right, for like
Yeah.
the management and above within, said particular organization. But now with the use of ChatGPT, with already having my expertise, I'm able to go and use that to cut down the time significantly because it spits that stuff out within like a minute, right? And then I just have to go through and just, again, through my lens, just fact check it, make sure it makes sense, that it's plausible and feasible, and then, format it however I choose to deliver it if I do a presentation or if I'm creating documents I can hand out to folks.
I like that. Hey, Christina.
Hey,
Hey,
Christina.
hey, ladies! I was listening to your conversation while I was dropping the kids off at school because you know you're really early for me. But
Yeah.
I love it. I love the conversation that you guys are having. And I also like Andrea's question about AI and how it's affecting employment. So I actually have been doing a little research on that because we see one because of where we are in the economy, and then two because there are certain trends that you can kind of follow and see. And so one of the things that I'm concerned about as an HR professional is that balance that Clinetta was kind of talking about. And I'm interested in seeing whether or not the government is going to put any like kind of solid regulations in place to try and to protect jobs. Because one of the things that I've noticed is that one, there's a certain demographic that's really being disproportionately affected by the use of AI in businesses. Like if you go to some of your restaurants, like Denny's is one that I know for a fact, and there are quite a lot of other ones in the LA, Long Beach kind of area that are using like these robots that bring your food to your tray, right?
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
that is so cool. Or, you know, you go into Circle K and they have the AI smart checkouts, right? And you look at it and you're like, oh, that's cool. But my HR brain is like, oh, somebody got lost their job. Somebody's working for part time now, you know, because AI really does. You know, I hear a lot of people say like all the time AI is not taking your jobs. But if you're on like at the ground level and you're talking to people, you notice and you find out really quickly that, well, yeah, it is. Like I was talking to a person at Walmart and she was telling me that they laid off like 5% or five people from their facility staff. And basically, facility is like building and maintenance and all that stuff, right? And one of the reasons why she said they did is because one, they have the robots that go through and sweep the floors, and they have machines that now that they can program, and now they're stocking the shelves. So when you think about that kind of stuff, you really think about like, well, what demographic is stocking shelves? And what demographic are our waiters, right? And who's working at the gas stations with these Circle Ks, right? So for me, that's a bit scary. I just wanted to share that.
It's funny you
No,
brought that up because my
definitely,
youngest was
you're
talking
right.
about that yesterday. Oh, we started talking at the same time. I didn't have anything to contribute. I was just laughing. I was like, my youngest was actually talking about that yesterday. He was just like, you remember that cat machine that brought our food? He was like, we need to get one of those. He said, that way
Right?
you don't have to cook as much.
Not replace mom.
He's like, yeah, I'll have more time to sit down and do other stuff besides cooking, always be in the kitchen. I was like,
Right?
oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point, though. But, like, it's like the pros and cons of that stuff. So
Yeah.
I really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's actually kind of scary if you think about it, especially where we are. And then I heard Conetta mention about machinery,
Mm-hmm.
and when the machine starts a new industry, and I agree 100%. My concern with that is that with the AI, this technology is different. It's like uh, at a level that we've never seen before, where you have technology that is able to reason, that's able to deal with different type of scenarios, technology that's able to diagnose and fix its own issues. Like we're dealing with a whole different type of technology, that I think, if the government doesn't start to respond a lot more sooner, we're going to see it significantly affect our economies until we're able to adjust and make changes. So Clonetta is head on 100% correct that one, people need to start being educated about
Yeah.
it. They need to start learning how to use the technology, because when that gap increases, there's a certain demographic that's going to be left out of that, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's scary because that kind of moves us into like third world type of stuff. Like, so it's scary, but I think it's scary, but I also think that it's exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
But it definitely, we need to have, more regulations. Even when you look at cryptocurrency and the use of digital money now, that's being introduced. We have crypto ATM machines in my city, and it's just like, wow, that's crazy. So it's exciting, but it's also scary, and I don't want people to get so caught up in the exciting that they don't think about what is actually happening and how it's affecting individuals on an individual level.
Yeah. I think one of the ways we can kind of combat that, though, like I said, encouraging people to be warm to the technology, but then also, I think we will, like, there's going to be a necessity for creation of new jobs,
Mm.
right? And then, you have to go through the whole socialization and change management of getting people's heads wrapped around some of these new jobs that will be spun out of it. And the folks that don't get on board, they are going to be left behind. And it is going to be really, really tough for them. But, like, again, a lot of this stuff, this is for years. Like 3 years ago, like I was using, because I sometimes trade Forex. At one point, I had a bot trading for me, and my
Wow.
bot was averaging $1,000 profit per week for me. Now, it's still, again, now this is where that balance is, because, again, like it could, if something unique happen with the market, or, like a black swan event in one of the countries, because we're trading, with Forex, you're trading the different currencies. And so, then you could lose a lot of money, right? So that's where, like, again, there still needed to be like somewhat of a human element of somebody that knew what they were doing to be able to, like, okay, let me go stop it. Like today,
Right.
the market's just too choppy, so I'm not gonna have it. And I had that feature that baked in. I had a young man I was paying to manage that for me, but yeah, there is kind of that balance. And like I said, that was like 3 years ago, like just with me my personal experience, right? And so, like, now, again, there's been so many more advancements just with the
Hmm.
technology. But I think that, again, kind of like with the whole manufacturing environment, we will see new jobs that will come out of it, that will be sparked from it, that will be more technical in scope. It may require a little bit more mental agility, initially, to be able to learn those jobs and learn how to be able to, you know, f- fix when things go down, putting the right prompts, the right formulas, and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's going to force some of us to step up, like it has. It's with me, like it's challenged me over the last few years. Like I never thought
Thank
or
you,
considered
officer.
myself as a technical person, but
Yep, I think so.
once I started
Yeah.
to see,
Yeah, but I think it's all really interesting. I sit in on webinars for AI trainings all the time, and I learn about new technology that's out there. But I myself personally, in my business, I'm not one that uses it a lot. Um, just because I don't know if I don't know if I consider it cheating, or I know that, like, when I do recruiting, for example, I can look at a resume and tell whether or not a person has used AI, right? And then my
Yeah.
sister is also a teacher. Shout out to my sister Kim, but she's a teacher, and that's one of the things she says all the time too. Is like she can tell that certain students are using AI,
mhm,
but as an instructor, they're actually told to not mention it or say anything about it because they have no way of actually proving it if it doesn't, like, their software doesn't pick it up because their software does not pick it up as plagiarized. And so, for me, that's a little bit scary when you think about the education system because, again, we know that using this technology is going to come with a level of intellect that's going to be required. And are our young people actually getting those critical thinking skills developed that they need in their younger ages so that they're able to build upon that as they get older? So, in the education realm, that really worries me. Especially because you have all of these online schools that are giving bachelor's and master's and PhDs. And it's like, are people really doing the work now? It's kind of,
Yeah.
you know
yeah.
it's interesting. We're in interesting times for sure.
Definitely. Definitely.
Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, ladies. Good morning, Adriana. What a wonderful conversation. I love geeking out with technology. It brings me back, to when we're looking at AI, right, and we're trying to kind of embrace it and see where we fit into it in regards to tool usage. I always go back to, like, my grandfather. My grandfather used to use two wires. He would talk about the advancements in technology. So he took these two wires, put them together, and when he put them together, he got radio, right? And then after the radio, then they actually got like an actual radio that could, move between a couple stations, but you get where I'm going. And then it was the TV. So I think for me with AI, I love it. I love it. And I think, Christina, you bring up some great points in regards to education, because even when we look at social media, on its own, our kiddos are still trying to navigate that, right? They're trying to navigate it. Parents are trying to navigate it. What does it look like? What boundaries should I put around it? What policies in the home? I mean, we could even use the word policy in the home environment. What policies do we have in regards to keeping our kiddos safe? And then, taking it into the educational space. But I think for me, what I absolutely love about it, is it's, for me, it's an expansion of your mind, right? Because you cannot eliminate the human. You cannot eliminate humans are going, you need to program it yourself. You're programming it yourself, whether we're talking about, I think in the Power of the Moment the other day, we were talking about AI in regards to time management tools. So we were talking about time management, tools. But, in this regard, you are programming it. So just to give a quick example, the other day, I'm looking at my target market, right? So I'm looking at my target market, and I was able to prompt it, and it gave me a chart. I mean, this is what I'm saying. It's madness, for us not to take a look and embrace it. It's a tool. It can help us organize ourselves, right? And it's not to say that we can eliminate those that will not use it respectfully or anything else. We're not going to eliminate that. We're responsible for ourselves, for our teams, for the people, in our families, and we can only hope that people are going to be responsible when using the tool. But I love this conversation.
I'm glad you were able to hop up today.
Yeah. No, I think you make some really great points. I want to shift to now, because I think we talked about all the great things, and Christina kind of got us there talking about some of the not so great things. But like I did share last week, my team experienced, again, one of the pitfalls, right, or negatives, right? Because again, that human component, some people will use the technology for good, and then others will use it for evil.
Yeah.
Or for
Tell
ways
me
to get
about it.
over. And so one of my recruiters caught someone using the technology, and I wasn't aware that, an apps of this nature existed. But
Stop it.
she
During the
called me.
interview?
Yes. So she
No.
called me right after the interview, and she said, this candidate was horrible. Her resume was great, but she was horrible. Like, she presented bad. It was the other piece of it too, because we do virtual interviews, but she literally had her dog sitting on her lap and stuff. It's almost in the dark. But my recruiter said, you know what, Clonetta, it looked like she was reading off a teleprompter. And I said, let me go to TikTok, because if there's something out there, TikTok is going to tell
Yep, it
about
sure
it.
will.
So I found videos. There is a technology that it gives you the responses to your interview questions live. So while the interviewer is asking the question, it's typing out that question, doing voice to text, and then it's tabulating the answer or response on another side of the screen. And so what was happening in this interview with my person is she would ask the girl the question, and then the girl, every question she'd ask, can you repeat the question? Like, to buy herself a little bit more time.
Yeah.
And then she wasn't even good reading off like the answer. Now on these TikTok videos, some of the people are a lot more savvy, and they're, it sounds halfway natural.
Yeah.
But again, they're showing you, because they have a friend or someone recording behind them, showing you that they're using this AI technology. Like, they have the answers appearing on the other side of the screen. And so, yeah, so that's something to be aware of, right? Like from an HR, did a couple videos that are out there, just, kind of forewarning, like with managers and like HR folks that are in the recruiting space, be cognizant of that. Like if something sounds off, it probably is. And so also the other piece of it too, because with this particular role, we're noticing like, wow, the resumes are really, really great, but the folks just aren't measuring up to the resumes. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, they're likely using AI to create their resumes. Right. So then when they get in an interview, they can't effectively speak to what's on the resume because it's
Yeah,
not,
it's high.
something that they actually created themselves.
That is crazy.
Yeah, I run
Yeah.
into that a lot too, where people have excellent resumes and you get excited, and then you talk to them, and it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
So I think that, but that's kind of been, I've seen that trend for like the last couple of years, where it's been really like in your face, blaring. Like these are a lot of people that have excellent resumes, and then you talk to them, and it doesn't correlate. Um,
Yeah.
and that's an interesting kind of dynamic too. But I just, I don't know, I don't use AI much, but maybe I'll start. I know Clinetta has put me onto a lot of different AI things.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I do what I do, and I've been doing it for 10 years before we knew anything about AI. But I'm also hearing that there's a curve that I'm going to get left behind if I
Yeah.
don't start to kind of embrace it. And I know like the older demographics, like my mom. When I talk to my mom about AI, um, she's just completely frustrated with it because her thing is, like, for instance, one of the things she brought up is blogs, right? Where blogs used to be really stimulating and you really got to know the author of certain blogs. And so that's why you stuck with those blogs. And nowadays, they all just seem kind of generic. Like you can tell people are spitting them off through AI, and every week you have a different, 2-page blog that's been written, and it's like very generic. It doesn't have any type of human effect or feel to it. And so for my mom, that's very frustrating for her. She doesn't like it. Like she stopped using and she stopped kind of reading some of the blogs. And then I have to be like, oh, well, that's true because there are people that I talk to. They're like, hey, yeah, AI does my blogs and it's all automated. And so it's like, man, should I figure out how to do that, or should I stick with my one blog every 2 months because I actually write them out? Right. So
Yeah.
it's interesting times for sure.
Yeah, you have to do what fits for you. But even with a lot of that stuff, because of the technology and it's advancing so quickly, a lot of that stuff is becoming obsolete. Like no one's taking the time, no one has time to read your blog, right? I know it sounds harsh, but like really, like that's why like with the algorithms, it's changing every like it was 6 months. I would even say every quarter, like it's changing. So now again, like the guidance is like really technically, like your little videos need to stay within 30 seconds, right? So that's why like YouTube is really pushing like the shorts, and and so it actually, folks have started to notice, like when they weren't doing shorts, like their channels weren't really growing or getting like traction and things like that. But it's like, again, the gift and the curse, because the technology is great. Like I said, I use it, love it. I have automations baked in. And again, all of that, I think people forget that all of that is AI technology. It's not just Chat GPT. But again, with that, it is shortening our attention span.
Oh, yes.
And so, like some things, like somebody, I was in a meeting, and because I just didn't speak about it because I didn't want to become negative. But the person was asking about advisement because they want to do an email, one of these email, like weekly email threads or whatever. No one's reading that. Like, like you guys know on here, how many emails are you getting? Like, people really don't have the time. Or, like, I may skim some of them because if I've, caught a glimpse of, like, the person does provide some good, useful knowledge or information, oftentimes a lot of that stuff is just getting one, it might be getting pushed to your the junk folder or what have you. But again, like our attention spans in the US, and then it does make me nervous, like with the children. Our attention spans are shortening. And so I do kind of wonder again what that says for our future. It makes me nervous a little bit on that end.
For sure. For sure. I just like to say maybe I'm a nerd. I read those things. Like if it's coming through, I read most things that come through. But I also enjoy reading. Like that's one of my hobbies is reading and research and all of that. So um, I get it, but it's weird to me. It really is. I cannot lie, and I don't know. Well, no, I can't even say it's because of the age group that I'm in, because people in my age group are really embracing it. I think I need to just and then I read so much about how AI is affecting. Well, not read, but I'll just share this story where I was at a networking event and I was speaking with the owner of a marketing company. And basically, what he said was that they laid off their full SEO team. And he said because the technology was working so well and they had created the technology the way that they needed it to, that they no longer needed the employees. And so for me, that was really sad because it was like these guys were making $90,000 to $140,000, and their whole department got laid off because they no longer needed them to do what AI was able to do. So again, I circle back to there has to be a way that we balance technology. I was reading an article that came out by TriNet. And one of the things that they were saying, and it was, TriNet is an HR type of publication. And so what they were talking about was the massive increase of AI use over consultants. And it was something like 67% of employers favored AI over using actual consultants. And, in reading that article is very eye opening because, as we know, those large language models, which I have played around with, and one of the reasons why I don't use them consistently is because it spits out wrong information. And if you don't, like Clonetta was saying, if you aren't a prompt master, you could really get yourself in some trouble if you're Googling or typing in questions or prompts and you aren't giving the right context or the right scenario. It'll throw you all off into an area where you shouldn't even be in, where it's telling you, yes, this is okay, but really it's not. And then especially when you think about state specific things, for me, it's just, I don't, because I don't know how to verify is one of the reasons why I don't tend to use it much. I'd rather just, use the resources I know to go and, find what I need to find. But it's just all, interesting. For sure. Hi, Erica.
I think Erica had a question or comment.
Hi, ladies. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
I'm loving this conversation. I was sitting there quiet, but I'm like, this is like real, right? Like, so I'm like agreeing with a lot of you guys. Like, I'm working in the background, I'm doing some things, so I was trying not to like get into the conversation, but I couldn't help myself. So I use like Microsoft 365, right? And I don't know if you all are familiar with Copilot. But Copilot is like it's AI for Microsoft 365. And it works with like all aspects of it. if you use it in your mail, it can summarize your email for you. And so you don't have to read the email and tell you if you have any like to-dos, in the email. If I use it in Word, like I'm also a landlord, right? So I was like revising a lease the other day. And it was like revamping like the words for me and just making it so much more concise for me in like Microsoft. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want to say. And then even like it can create, now this is the part that I want to talk to you guys about. It in PowerPoint, it can create like slides for you. So when I first got it, I was testing it out. And so my husband works for Entenmann's, like the cake company. And I was like, give me a topic, any old topic that you want to create a deck about. And he said, okay, ask it to create a deck about the founder of Entenmann's. And it created, you gotta, like you said, be a prompt master. So I just told it to create like a 30-minute deck on whatever and asked it to include certain things. And it literally spit out this man's life with pictures of him back in the day, his mom, who he sold the business to, like all of that stuff. And I literally started thinking about my granddaughter, right? Because I was like, these kids, if I have this at home, like these kids don't have to do any work. Like back in the day when we had to do research, imagine if a teacher tells you to, do a presentation and come in with, do your research. They don't have to do any research. They have to practice what the AI spit out. That's all they really have to do. So I just wanted to, just to bring that point up because it is, I use it a lot, but like Clonetta and Christina was saying, you have to know the topic, like especially in AI. Like when, I use it, I still have to review everything that it says because I literally can't use it for something that I know nothing about, because then I don't have an idea of what is giving wrong. And and it might be the slightest little thing. And if I plan on doing a presentation on it, if I don't know much about it, I'm gonna look stupid. So you still have to have the education, the knowledge in the area if you're going to use it, especially professionally. So that's what I wanted to say.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I was wanting to chime in there because, it was having me think, my husband is been in recruitment and HR for many years now. And, for me, what's the difference between at the beginning of the career, someone coming in with a resume that wasn't even theirs? I mean, he has some stories to share. So there was a couple instances where someone would show up for the interview, say that they had, such and such degrees, and they didn't even have the degrees. And this was way before AI. So I think for me, the point being is, we can control kind of what we're doing with the tool responsibly and just, hope that everyone else can use it responsibly. But I love what you were saying, Erica, about the power behind it, because just using that for an example, creating a slide deck on the founding person for Entenmann's. I mean, that's amazing. Again, not forgetting that if our kids are using these tools, for instance, and they are in some sense, and they will continue to be more submerged into it. But you have to have the thought first, right? So you're programming it. And I think that when you realize that, and you realize that, based on how you're programming, your thoughts into the whether it's chat gbt or some other AI tool, you have to program it. So for me, that I just come back to that, for us not to embrace it and to kind of figure out how we fit into it is only going to leave us in a place that we really don't want to leave ourselves. I think it's really important to always feel or come from the place of empowerment. And in this area, especially with this group of women that we have here today, we always want to be in a position of empowerment and not kind of know what's going on. But yeah, this has been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, and I think that just to kind of highlight what you said around just because we may approach it ethically and have good intentions with our use, there are other people that have the complete and opposite intentions. So I think, as much as you can, try to keep yourself abreast of some of the shady things that are happening because it will help you call out, right? So, like I've highlighted for the rest of like my team members, right, that are interviewing folks, just so that again, it's on their radar now, so that they can kind of pick out like, oh, this doesn't sound right. Like, maybe this person is using something else, during this interview to get them through it, and that they're not thrown off. And so then even with again, like look, Christina knows like I will call people out, but like I ask poignant questions, right? Like with everyone creating apps, right? Technology, the AI technology can create apps, and so I ask specifics like, are you doing the coding, right? And again, like you were saying, Erica, you do have to have some knowledge, right? And because I do have some working knowledge, just with like technology, not in depth, but just having supported my first set of clients, like with consulting, were like tech guys, right, that did coding and stuff like that. So I have a vantage point of knowing like what can be done and kind of what can't be done. And then you can kind of pick out and see, oh, I don't think this person really is actually doing the coding. They're likely utilizing like AI technology or just the integration within these platforms. Um, and so I think that again, like it's going to continue to evolve and grow. Um, but I encourage folks kind of explore what's out there. There's some good tools out there that again will help you grow as an individual. If you're in business, it can help you elevate your business, your branding. It can help you, kind of get a lot more organized, to reduce your time and things of that nature. Like it's amazing what it can do, but also beware of the shysters that are out there.
I'm laughing, Clonetta, because I'm remembering that meeting that we were in where you basically that poor young man, he was not ready. But Clonetta
Like
started
I
asking
know,
this
I
man
know.
questions, and yeah, it is, and that's one of the reasons why I love Clonetta is because she does understand this world, and so I follow a lot of what she posts because she understands this world, and this guy would have had me, people building whole business models behind AI and then trying to charge you $75,000.
Yes.
And girl, it was crazy. So yeah,
Yes.
you do right. But I
No,
will
like I
never
said,
forget that meeting.
it can get scary because like again, you know, um, not everyone has the right heart, in it. Like Kimberly was saying, like not everybody, has the good intentions or to be ethical with this. Like some people are out here doing some great damage, um, just around this. So like, yeah, there's definitely pros and cons, to everything, but, also try to again, again, I used to not be a TikTok person. I just kind of within the last year um, have really gotten more involved with it. But I have found it a great resource to be able to find, like, that's how we've gotten the topics around, like, the quiet vacation and, again, so for me, like, I go there to see, especially what some of the young kids are doing, some of the little shady things, because also with that generation, they can't keep their mouth closed. Like they share everything. And so that's why I knew when my recruiter said it looked like she was reading off a teleprompter. I said, let me go to TikTok because somebody on TikTok is telling about it. And it was right there.
I love this conversation. I do have to get ready to go to a phone call, but I didn't want to like cut in. So I do want to ask Clemetta, is there anything you would like to tell everybody before we start breaking up the room and everything?
No, just have a great holiday weekend. I'm so excited. We're at the end of summer. It flew by so
It
fast, and
did.
I'm even more excited for this last part of the year. Like it's going to be phenomenal.
I feel the same way. I want to thank you ladies for hopping up and joining the conversation. It's always better when like more people can come up and talk and stuff. It's so much smoother and I can keep it going forever if we could. Maybe not forever, but much longer than the hour that we have set. But I do want to say the only thing I have to add is, of course, have a great Friday. And then because we meet up again on the 16th of September, on September 10th, I run my monthly roundtable where a bunch of business owners or those in corporate leadership positions, we just come talk about different things that are going on inside the business or what we're trying to do in our personal life and just come up with solutions for each other. So that's happening September 10th, and it's free to sign up, and you can click the link in my, not the quick link in my bio. Go to my profile and click it. I have it in the featured section. I forgot what platform I'm on, but I have that going on the 10th. And other than that, that's pretty much it. I'm trying to get my life in order, and yeah, that's it. So thank you guys or ladies.
All right, bye.
Bye.